How is psychological data that is collected for psychological research, different from data collected for scientific research in subjects like physics, chemistry, or biology? Hello and namaste once again. Today I'll be talking about the nature of psychological data. So, psychology helps us in understanding others as well as in understanding ourselves. So, both the scientific and interpretative methods will help us to examine human behavior and experience through systematic observation and analysis. Because we know that psychology helps us to understand ourselves, to know why am I feeling sad. Sometimes we think, why am I all of a sudden feeling sad? Or why my self control is not working in spite of trying so hard. So, interpretative method especially helps us in understanding the subjective meaning of different situations, the context, and the experiences of each individual. Thereby, once we understand why each one interprets the same situation differently, it's easy to understand ourselves and others. So, due to this, the nature of psychological data is very different from other sciences, as we have to try and incorporate complex, context dependent human behavior and experiences. Now, behavior is of two types, as you know: overt behavior, which can be observed, covert behavior, which is whatever is happening internally in our mind, and this makes it very subjective. So, data, why do we need data in the first place? Because we need it to verify our hypothesis, whether it is correct, or to falsify it. And again, like we discussed, it's a cyclical process. Once we falsify or verify our hypothesis, we have to again start from step one. And in psychology, the data is very context based because they are always influenced by the method of collection. There are different data collection methods, which I will be discussing and helping you with in classes. And our theories, our research is always guided by a particular theory. So the same person can behave differently. Our data, because it is context driven. Why is it context driven? Because the person's behavior depends on the situation. It depends on other people who are present, and it depends on the time and the place. So the same person behaves differently in different situations or contexts, or in the same situation, different people behave or respond differently. So there are different types of psychological data. We have to collect information, demographic information like age, gender, education, occupation, and so on. We have to collect physical data, the type of environment the person lives in, their housing conditions, facilities, what kind of transport they use, what kind of economic conditions they're living in, and so on. And because our behavior is influenced by whatever is happening internally in our body, we need this physiological data and psychological data as well, related to intelligence, the personality type, and so on. There are different forms of psychological information, and it is somewhat crude. It is not very accurate, like in scientific data, which is driven by numbers. So, psychological data is categorical. You have in your survey the high or the low, which is like highly you agree or disagree very strongly, and so on. or it could be just yes or no classifications, and it could be rank based. And you have numerical data which falls into a particular range. Then we also have qualitative data because, as you know, psychology is driven by context. Hence, we collect reports, we conduct interviews, we even examine the personal diaries. So, we use both quantitative and qualitative measures because we focus on meaning of situation. Each person interprets the situation, same situation, differently. Hence, we gather both quantitative and qualitative data. So, what we understand is psychological data needs interpretation. The numbers don't speak for themselves. We have to interpret it using the person's background, social, cultural, and situational background. The kind of data that we collect also influences the results, the methods that we use. So the collection method and respondent characteristics will affect data nature. Many times, what people will report to you when you ask them will be very different from how they behave when you observe them in their natural environment. So, context is everything in psychology. So, our data will be context bound, it is method dependent, it needs very much interpretation. Other than unlike physical sciences or your core subjects like physics, chemistry, and math. So it is important to understand the nature of psychological data because this is different from the data collected in scientific subjects like physics, chemistry, or biology. We have to consider both the numbers as well as the interpretative aspect, the scientific aspect as well as the interpretative aspect. So that's about nature of psychological data. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.